Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a new releases wrap up. I'll have timestamps in the description bar down below in case you'd like to skip ahead to any of the 3 books that I am talking about, but those 3 books would be Song of Silver, Flame Like Night, Encyclopedia of Faeries, and Spice Road. Jumping into it, I'm going to start with Encyclopedia of Faeries. This is a story that follows a young woman who is a scholar. Her name is Emily Wilde, and she's determined to learn more about fairies. Currently, fairies are quite elusive. They're hard to determine very much about. In academic circles that study fairies, there are some general things that are known to be true, but so much about fairies is still yet to be uncovered and yet to be discovered. And so our main character really wants to do what she can to find out more about fairies, specifically the ones that are a little bit more intelligent, a little bit more powerful. She goes to this small Nordic town in the hopes that she can determine more about them from there. And in going there, she starts to recognize that her not being the best at social skills and interacting with other people is actually harming her research, because the locals know quite a bit about what's going on, but they don't really want anything to do with her because they're perceiving her behavior as rude and a little pretentious. And so she's kind of not off to a great start. From there, one of her work colleagues decides that he's going to go ahead and join her on this venture, and she's very frustrated by him accompanying her, but at the same time, she recognizes that he would probably be a valuable asset to her studies. He does know a lot about fairies, and so she begrudgingly lets him help her. And from there, you discover more about the Fae. So I do think the writing style is a lot of fun. I really liked the writing. I thought it was very cheeky. I thought it had so much charisma to it. I really liked Emily as a main character because I can kind of relate to that. I just want to go off to the corner and work and study, and I don't really want to talk to people right now. I think that's a very relatable thing. And it actually reminded me a lot of when I was in high school during lunch. A lot of times I would do that. I would go to the library and work on stuff. And I wasn't good at socializing. I felt awkward. I never felt like I knew how to talk to people. So I definitely think that if you were that kind of a bookworm or academic person, or just not even related to academics, if you were just that person that was always kind of shy and wasn't the person that was always making friends with everybody, I think you're going to probably really connect to Emily. And I think you will equally find her work colleague very frustrating and kind of great on your nerves, but at the same time, there's a part of you that's like, it would be nice if I could be like that. I wish I could have that skill of just being able to talk to people. He also is very carefree. He is rather flippant about things, and he can be quite obnoxious and annoying, but I do like the pair of them together. I like the way that they kind of butt heads and that they work together, and they're very, very different working styles. And I also like that there is some mysteries involving his character that you discover more about as you're reading. So I liked all of that. Also, Emily has a dog that is her companion, and he goes with her wherever she goes. So I, of course, loved that. I thought it was adorable. But I also really liked the fact that the Fae in this story, the fairies, were legitimately terrifying. And the way that they behaved was more so rooted in folklore, which makes sense given that the setup of the story is that we are trying to look at Fae in the sense of as if the folklore was real and a thing to be studied. If you've read Spinning Silver, the way that the Fae behave in that story is kind of like how they behave here, or maybe the Bear and the Nightingale, the way that the mythical beings act in that, where it's genuinely terrifying. They can do some really disturbing things, and they can completely ruin people's lives. They can lead to people dying. So they are not happy, cute, or sexy, because that seems to be the main thing that we get with Fae these days. So I really liked the way that the Fae were in this, but there are some Fae that are tricksters, or there are some Fae that are a little more careless and a little sillier, and so I like that we get this full range of what the Fae can be. This read in a lot of ways like a standalone, but there are certain plot points that I'm very excited to see in sequels because it is the first in a series. But I think that if you wanted to give this one a go, but you're hesitant because you know it's the first in a series and you typically don't like starting new series until they're done, I still think you could read this one and you could just leave it at that first book if you wanted, and then if you want to continue later, you can. But it's not like it's a completely unresolved plot by the end of the book. There's a lot of things that are concluded in a very satisfying way. So I really liked it. I thought it was so fun. The thing that I think will keep some people from really liking it is that the other character, the work colleague, I think will annoy some people. I enjoyed the banter, I enjoyed the way they butt heads, but I also could see some people finding him too obnoxious. So just keep that in mind. And also, if you're somebody who you don't really like these kind of quieter stories, you're more of an epic fantasy kind of person, then I could see you not really finding this all that appealing. Next up, we have Song of Silver Flame Like Night. I did a whole spoiler discussion with my friend Roger. It's over on my Patreon if you'd like to watch that and see spoilers, because there were some moments in this that I was not expecting, and I literally gasped at one point. It was very dramatic. I was all alone, except for Luna. I gestured in front of me because she's laying over there. But I was up late reading, and I was on my couch, and I got to one part, and I was like, and I was shocked. I was legitimately shocked, and that's kind of hard. I don't usually have physical reactions to what I'm reading, but I legitimately reacted, and then there were a couple other parts that I was like, no. And anytime a book can create that, I've literally told you nothing about the book, just the fact that I reacted to it, and maybe that's enough for some of you. But anyway, if the reason I'm saying all that is if you have read it and you want to hear more about those spoiler details, then that is an option for you. But anyway, Song of Silver Flame Like Night follows two main characters. One is a girl named Lon, and the other is a boy named Zen. Lon is someone who is currently living among her conquered peoples, and she is just trying to get by. She kind of keeps to herself, but she also clearly has a dark and mysterious past that you don't really know what happened. You don't quite know what happened to her family, but you know that something occurred, and that is why she's currently living on her own, just barely getting by. And then Zen is somebody who, he is a practitioner of an old kind of magic that for the most part no longer exists since they were conquered, but he is one of the last remaining practitioners, and he discovers that there is something about Lon that she clearly knows nothing about, but that might have to do with their nearly lost magic. The way that they have the magic done, it's really cool. It takes a while to really have a firm grasp on the magic because there's different kinds of magic. So where they're from, their magic, it almost feels limitless. There's a lot to do with drawing certain symbols and then pulling from magic, and there's the different kinds of magic and the ways that you can have different powers based off of the pool that you're taking from. And then the conquerors have magic that has to do with metal, but it very much seems like they are taking from the magic of the people they have conquered, and the people are trying to learn how to fight back or resist from being completely taken, having everything of their culture stripped from them. And so a big theme in this story is how much should you fight back? And there is dark magic that they can tap into that for the most part they know they're not supposed to, but if that dark magic allows them to push out this threat of being completely conquered, then is it ultimately worth it? Should you go back on your teaching? Should you go back on what all of the lore and all the history has told you is right so that you can save people now? And so the way that the magic works in this, it reminded me in some ways of Shadow of the Fox, if you've read that trilogy. I think some of the plot points as well reminded me of Shadow of the Fox, but some of those themes reminded me of Babel. It felt like if you smush Shadow of the Fox and Babel together, you'd get this book. It's more fantastical than something like Babel, but it doesn't feel maybe quite as fun and adventurous as the Shadow of the Fox trilogy did. That trilogy starts fun and adventurous, but gets more serious as it goes, whereas this one, I feel like within this first book, got to some really serious moments. Some of the questions that arise that the characters have to deal with, I thought were dealt with in a very heartbreaking but realistic way. And I myself was like, I kind of want them to use the dark magic. I kind of want them to do whatever they got to do to get these horrible people to leave them alone. I want them to preserve who they are and what they love. And I myself was like, I probably would turn to the dark side. And I like when books do that, when you're like, I don't know if I would just be squeaky clean. I probably would not. I don't know if I would. So really liked that. I really liked the way that as the story goes, you start out feeling kind of fun, and it feels like, okay, we're following this girl and she's kind of silly, and then the boy is kind of stern, and so you have these types that we've seen a lot, but as you go, you definitely have certain expectations flipped on their head. As you get to know more about the characters, it gets a lot more serious. So that's another thing, is if you like that kind of slow character discovery, then I think that there's a chance that you would like this as well. Last for today, we have Spice Road. This story follows a young girl named Imani, and Imani's brother went missing, and everybody believes that he likely died. They believe that he started to become addicted to a certain substance that they have that allows them to have certain magical abilities. They think that he either became addicted to that, or that he was lost in the desert, or that he abandoned where they live, their people, and likely was killed once he crossed over into this other land. But regardless, the reality is that he is gone, and Imani doesn't quite know how to deal with that. So in a lot of ways, she just pours herself into being the best she can possibly be. Her younger sister does not allow her to bury her emotions. Her younger sister consistently is pushing her and telling her, you need to deal with this, you're avoiding this. And also, I think he's alive, and I think we should do something about it, and I think we should find him. And so she ultimately convinces her sister to seek out the truth, to seek out if their brother is indeed alive. And once certain evidence arises that presents the idea that potentially he is alive, then Imani's life completely turns around, and now she wants to go on this rescue mission, essentially. So with her, she has a group of other individuals that she doesn't really get along with, and they all believe and perpetuate all the negative things that are being said about her brother. So she kind of just begrudgingly deals with them. And as the story progresses, she is having aid from a magical being that, due to her monster hunter type status, she is not supposed to have this aid. And this aid comes from a genie who seems to have had some kind of connection to her brother. And so she's relying on that individual to help her. And if she does find out that her brother is indeed alive, she doesn't know, will I help him in whatever cause led him to leave us, or do I bring him back to face justice to our people? The reason that justice comes into play is because they believe that their kingdom, that they were essentially divinely placed as guardians to this magic that is there, and anybody who tries to get to this kingdom will get lost in the desert. And so it is very important that they do not allow this magic to go outside of their land. However, as the story progresses, you are seeing that once they get to the outside land, maybe they shouldn't have all of this magic to themselves. It's very much kind of similar in plot to Black Panther. So if you really liked Black Panther and you thought the way that they did that whole concept of, is it better to keep us safe and basically say, screw everybody else, they can figure it out, or maybe we should examine if we should share this. And yes, maybe some people will use this for bad things, but it also could help save a lot of people's lives, especially if we use our knowledge and we guide them with it. But also the teachings tell us we're not supposed to, especially when there's a religious element in there as well, and you truly believe that you were divinely pushed into this role. Do you go back against that? Is that wrong? So I definitely thought that the moral dilemmas for the main character made a lot of sense. I also really liked the journey aspect of the story. It is primarily a traveling story, and I liked the way that the world developed as we went through it. It felt very magical. It kind of reminded me if you took the Stardust Thief and City of Brass and you kind of smushed them together. I keep smushing things together to describe books today, but in a lot of ways, that's what it reminded me of. So I really liked the way that world building was done. I did find that the relationship between our main character and one of the other characters that is accompanying her, I grew a little frustrated with our main character, Imani, because the other character would do things where I'm like, okay, we should be furious about this. And I know that we're kind of on a timeline here, like we really need to get things done quickly. We don't have time to sit and talk about things, and you kind of all have to work together towards this goal. But should you work together? Because some of their actions, I feel like maybe not. So I did get a little frustrated that I felt like there were certain things that would happen that were a big deal, but then they weren't that big of a deal in how the characters responded and reacted to them. So that was a little bit frustrating for me, but overall, I still had a lot of fun with this book. It is a little tropey, it is a little familiar. I don't think it's the most original. It does also have similar themes to what we see in Song of Silver Flame Like Night, and I don't know that I thought those themes were as prevalent. They were done well when we got them, but they were kind of in the latter half of the book. If even half is the right way to put it. I'd say like the last quarter of the book or so is when we started to see these themes. And I thought the way that they were done, it was done well, but we just didn't see them very much, so I wonder if we're going to see those a lot more in the sequel. Overall, I thought it was fun. I had a good time with it. I liked the world building. I overall enjoyed myself, but I do think that if this is going to reach if it's going to really dig deep, that's going to come more so in the second book. I hope it does, because I can see there being a lot of potential for this to do those themes really, really well. That's it for some new releases. Let me know if you've read these, what your thoughts were on them, and let me know if you're interested in picking them up. I will have any relevant information in the description bar down below. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.